To teach you the swing, we're going to use a swing variation called the towel swing. There are two reasons to do it. One is it's a killer for your grip, so very important for a grappler. But another reason is it amplifies your mistakes. It amplifies your mistakes so much that very quickly you're going to learn how to swing correctly. What does correctly mean? Correctly means ballistically. A swing is not just like a deadlift. It's very much, the motion of the hips is very much like the deadlift, but the action is ballistic. What's the difference between a ballistic and non-ballistic movement? A non-ballistic movement is something like a jet airplane. It keeps driving itself. A ballistic action is a bullet that's been shot out of a gun or a stone that has been thrown. Ballistics is a study of objects in motion that have been launched. So the same thing. In the deadlift, we'll lift the bell. In the swing, we'll launch the bell. So here's how we're going to learn it. You're going to choke a towel through the handle of a kettlebell, and it should be a small kettlebell because it's going to feel much heavier than it looks due to the greater length. And you're going to be ready to drop the works at any time. If you start getting pulled off on your toes, just let go to live and swing another day. And you're going to hike past, you're going to hold it close to the handle on the towel. Then you're going to hike past the bell behind you. And then all you have to do is just contract the glutes like you remember. Don't worry about the bell and just see what happens. All right, so watch. Mike is going to choke off the towel, load up his lats, hike past the bell back, and don't worry about the bell at all. The arms are loose. That's it. And go. Contract the glutes. That's it. Notice if you do this correctly, there we go. Wait until your forearms almost hit your body before hinging back. And park the bell. Sit back and park. Notice how he naturally offsets his center of gravity and stand up, relax, and park the bell. So I'm going to draw your attention to several things that he's doing correctly. First of all, the arms and the kettlebell and the towel form an extension of each other. So it's one long extension. The kettlebell is not rattling all over the place. That's one of the beauties of this feedback. If the kettlebell starts dipping down or flipping up, it just means you're doing some crazy work with the upper body. There's no upper body involved. The swing is just all about the hips, and the arms are correct, just connecting the ropes that are connecting you to this kettlebell. Therefore, you want to have that nice stretched feeling. And second of all, pay attention to this delay. Remember I told you about the ballistic nature of the swing. If you just pop the hips, then the bell flies. And there's a delay, and then there's that silence. Just relax that moment, enjoy it, let it come down. When it almost hits you, then hinge back and pop again. And when that feels comfortable, you can kind of build up the height, build up to about sternum level. Let's see it, Mike. Take a breath. Very good. So notice he's waiting until his arms almost hit him into the body. So he's playing chicken with a kettlebell. He's not hinging any sooner. And notice now he's going a little higher, very comfortable. The arms are loose, and park. So it feels really awesome. Feels absolutely awesome. Now let's just make Mike do something really terrible and try to pretend to lift it with your arms and just make the kettlebell do some crazy stuff. You know, here's a typical guy who got no instruction, who says, oh, I can just do this from YouTube. I'm just going to go and do that. And he starts muscling this bell and just going crazy. He's, upper body. With the towel. Well, let's do it with the towel. See what happens. Yes. I'm getting out of the way here. Scary, man. Oh, yeah. That beats curls, right? Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Mike. So yeah, this is what you normally see. It's not the swing. I don't know what it is, but it's not the swing. The two-arm swing. Mike's stance is the typical swing stance, which is a little bit wider than the shoulders, toes comfortably turned out. He stands behind the bell. The reason you do it because you got to hike past that bell. You don't start from the beginning, from the middle, like the deadlift. You start from the front and throw it back. He's going to demonstrate 5 swings to us, and we're going to talk about it. Please, Mike. Thank you, Mike. You know everything already from the towel swing and the deadlift. So hook the handle with the tips of your fingers. Do not grip it too tight. Make your arms long. Connect with your lats. Assume that perfect back position that you already have learned from the deadlift, that hinge. Take a breath brace your abs, hike back the bell. As soon as it's behind you, think of your hamstrings as a stretched bow. And then you just have to contract the glutes, just stand up rapidly. All you have to do is stand up. It's kind of like a standing vertical jump or a broad jump. And by the act of standing up, you launch the kettlebell. That becomes that ballistic action that we're looking for. And then after that, you just let it hover there. And as you are, you're planking on the top. You're not just hanging out. Your body's still tight. You're strong. Then you wait till it almost hits you. You're going to start playing chicken with it. You're going to launch it again. Let's hit 5 more, please, Mike. See how comfortable and loose his arms are? Thank you, Mike. The one-arm swing, facing the operator. Be afraid, operator. Be very afraid. Thank you, John. That's the one-arm swing. With every rep, the kettlebell just wants to pull you out of whack. See, that's the idea of training in those disorderly settings we're talking about. Build that three-dimensional strength. And also, of course, build the grip. So this is what's going to happen to you on the top. Just envision this. John, please assume the top of the swing stands. So this is what the kettlebell is going to try to make him do. It's going to try to fold him over or spin him like this. See? And his job is not to let this happen. So he's going to do it right now. He's going to squeeze his cheeks, square up. See how he's packing his shoulder? His abs are tight. So that's the position. That's what he does. Thank you, John. So this is what you have to do on the top of the one-arm swing. So remember, you're trying to keep yourself squared. The bell keeps trying to get you off center, but you're going to try to keep it squared. On the bottom, let your forearm, obviously arm is going to lie on the ribs, and let your forearm touch your inner thigh on that one side. Keep hooking the bell just with your fingers, not grip it very, very tightly. Otherwise, it's the same thing as the two-arm swing, just much harder. But there is room in your training for both types of swings because the one-arm swing recruits muscles so much stronger. We've tested these things in the lab and things like your glute medius and your lats and other muscles, they just go crazy lighting up because of that asymmetrical loading, how the belt just doesn't want to cooperate. But on the other hand, the two-arm swing allows you to use heavier weights and allows you to be more explosive. So both exercises should belong in your training. So do both. And now, the hand-to-hand swing. Even though it is not a part of the training program in this video, it will teach you some very valuable lessons. John, please demonstrate. Thank you, John. What's the purpose of this exercise? Other than training your grip, of course. The purpose of this exercise is to learn to tense and relax rapidly. So the tension, relaxation. And it also reinforces the ballistic nature of the swing. What does that mean? A squad of Russian soldiers are digging a ditch. And one young soldier who doesn't know any better is asking the sergeant, excuse me, sir, when are we going to rest? So the sergeant tells him, okay, the farther you throw the dirt, the longer it's in the air. So while it's in the air, you get to rest, right? So that time when the bell is hovering, just enjoy that rest. It's very, very special. And the longer it hovers, the more ballistic is your swing. So this is an example of a non-ballistic swing, a joke of a swing. A ballistic swing, and it just flies. Let's see it again, John. And park. And just to drive this point home, please do several two-arm swings with that same type of float, a very lazy float. Thank you, John. So do not confuse power and cadence. In our system of training, we always use very high power. Swings have to be powerful. But cadence, how many reps you do per second, there are some circumstances when it has to be high, but most of the time, no. So one powerful shot, let it hang out there for a while. Enjoy.
So let's dive into the Get Up. The Get Up is a fantastic tool that requires shoulder mobility and stability, total body coordination. It can act as a strength tool, but it can also act as a warm-up. But we're gonna teach you the Get Up without a kettlebell first. We call it a naked Get Up, and that is a body weight Get Up, not with the clothes off. And then we're gonna teach you how to do it with a shoe to give you some feedback. And then lastly, we're gonna use a kettlebell. So we're gonna start John on his back, and he's just gonna start completely flat with his legs out. So from here, we're gonna start with a right-sided Get Up. And when we say right-sided, that would be the hand in which you're holding the kettlebell. So we don't have a kettlebell yet, but we're gonna walk through as if we're gonna be teaching a loaded kettlebell Get Up. So he's gonna take his right hand and place it right towards the sky. So go ahead and come on up. Now it's important that once we're here, that the shoulder stays down and packed. We don't wanna be overreaching or shrugging. So we want to keep the shoulder connected. And what I can do is I can just pull on his hand lightly just to check the positioning. Now from here, we're going to have him bend his right knee. And this is the start position for the Get Up. Now, the first position is going to be called the roll to elbow. And essentially what we're going to do is he's going to use his right leg as a driver to help him roll up onto his left elbow. Now, when we do that, it's very important that this doesn't become a glorified crunch. We don't want our shoulders to crunch towards our hips, because when that happens, first of all, the leg's gonna pop up and it's just not a smooth movement. So when he rolls to the elbow, he's gonna drive with his leg, he's gonna roll onto the left side of his hip and get right to this position, and this is the roll to elbow. Now, a couple things we wanna focus on here. This is vertical. Imagine that there's a cup of water here or a heavy kettlebell. We wanna maintain vertical for the duration of the drill. Also, the positioning of his elbow in relationship to his shoulder. We want his elbow directly underneath his shoulder. Everybody talks about the importance of holding the kettlebell, but the bottom arm is actually loaded with a percentage of his body weight. So it's very important that we stay stacked here, but we also stay stacked in that position. So we're gonna have you come back down, and we're just gonna let's do 3 roll to elbows, okay? So he's gonna roll up, and then again, we're vertical here, and his elbow's directly underneath his shoulder. And we'll come back down. And you'll notice he's rolling onto his side a little bit, and he's coming back down. That's what we're looking for. So once he goes to the roll to elbow, now we're gonna go to the elbow to the post position. So he's gonna take his hand, he's gonna place it onto the ground, and he's gonna drive his hand into the mat, and he's gonna rotate his fingers just a little bit backwards. Now, everyone is going to look different here. If you have very, very long arms, your hand's gonna be further away from your body. If you have shorter arms, it's gonna be closer. But we need to make sure that he's nice and stable at this position, because as we go through the next transition into the low sweep, we need to be nice and stable. So I'm gonna keep you here for 1 second. I'm gonna come back down to the elbow, and we're gonna practice that little transition. We're gonna basically corkscrew his hand into the mat, and he's gonna drive his hand into the mat and be nice and stable through here. So you'll notice that little rotation of the hand is super important for health of the shoulder, but also for stability. Come back down one more time, bud. And then he's gonna go right up to the post. Now, as he gets to the post position, he's gonna have a little bit more of a vertical torso. We wanna make sure that we're nice and vertical here. So we wanna be solid here in vertical and solid through the post position. Now we're gonna go to the sweep position, or the low sweep. So John is going to bring his leg underneath him, and he's going to land. Now we're gonna talk about a couple different angles here. Now, you're gonna see that there's pretty much a straight line from John's wrist to his knee to his foot. That's what we're looking for. Wrist, knee, and foot. And then he's also in this open right angle position, approximately 90 degrees. And that's what we're looking for. Now at this position, you can always change a few things. So I may say, John, bring your hand here a little bit, and then go from there. So we're gonna transition back to the post position. He's gonna sweep that leg through, and he's gonna have a seat. And then I'm gonna have him bridge up one more time. And again, he's gonna have that nice alignment from the wrist, the knee, and the foot. Now from here, we need to get into the half kneeling. So I'm gonna have John sit his butt back so he can transition into the split stance position or the lunge position. So John, you're gonna go ahead and now just get the angles nailed down for your lunge. So he's gonna reposition everything. Now at this position, this sets him up to go standing in the overhead position. So a couple things we're looking for. We want to make sure, again, bicep is by the ear. If there was a cup of water on here, we wouldn't spill it. We've got approximately a right angle here, approximately a right angle on his left knee, and he's going to drive through the ground to the standing position. Once he's here, the kettlebell is in the overhead position. All right, this is halfway through the get up. Now we're going to reverse it. So John is going to take a big step back, and he's going to land back to the deck. And again, we're back at that 90-90 lunge position. Now from here, we need to make sure that we're not going to throw our low back under the bus. So what we're going to do is we're going to have John windshield wiper this leg towards me. And then he's going to hinge. His hand is going to find the floor, and now we're back at that 90-90 position where the wrist, the knee, and the foot is in a straight line, and he's in this open kneeling position. From here, he needs to be really strong through the right leg and really strong through his left hand, because those two limbs are going to support the majority of his body weight. He's going to slide his leg through, and he's going to gently come back down to the floor, and now he's at that post position. He's going to come to the elbow, and then he's going to crunch his abs, control his body on the way back down. So that's the basic steps of the get up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring a shoe into the equation. Now why a shoe? There's nothing magical about the shoe. The shoe is going to give us feedback as to whether or not the kettlebell is truly in the overhead position, because if you don't understand how to make the transitions, adding an external load like a kettlebell is really a bad idea. So John is going to show us a beautiful get up with his shoe on his fist. Now, a couple things to consider. Don't put your hand in the shoe, because that defeats the whole purpose of it. So from here, John is going to go through the positions, and I'm going to torture him a little bit, but he knows what to do here. So we've got the shoe in the hand. He's going to roll to elbow, and then look, a nice vertical position, elbows underneath the shoulder. He's going to go up to the post. John knows these transitions. Now he's going to basically bridge up enough so he can swing his left leg through. And then he's going to get into that position where his wrist, his knee, and his foot is in a straight line, and he's at that right angle. From here, he's going to sit into his hips, and then he's going to get upright and transition into that lunge position, or that 90-90 split stance position. The weight is overhead, and John's doing a fantastic job of owning that overhead position. Now we're halfway through. He's going to drop step, control on the way down. Now he's going to windshield wiper this foot towards me so he can demonstrate a nice hinge to the ground. From here, we've got that nice alignment, wrist, knee, and foot, open 90-degree angle, and then he's going to slide his leg through, and he's going to gently land on the floor. He's nice and stable. From there, he's going to come back down to the elbow, and then he's going to control his way down. Now John is going to demonstrate this with the kettlebell. We're going to show you a couple different angles. So from here, John is going to be in the side lying position. And you can't see it now, but his elbow is tight to his ribs. So from here, John's going to grasp the kettlebell with two hands, and then he's going to lie onto his back. He's going to bring the kettlebell with him. We don't want him to wrench his arm into this position. So he's going to come back, and then from there, he's going to press up into the floor press position. Now from here, I'm just going to have John do a basic get up at a pace that you're comfortable with, okay? So I'm just going to narrate through. So he's going to roll to elbow. Good. Then he goes up to the post. He bridges up enough to get into that transition. He sits into his hips. Then he goes into that vertical position. From here, he's at that 90-degree angle of his front and back knee. He stands up. The kettlebell is stacked overhead, biceps by the ear. He's got a nice drop step. Control. He's going to windshield wiper. He's going to hinge and find the floor. From here, he's going to sit his leg through. He's going to come down and slowly hit the ground, back to the elbow, and then control back down to the floor. Now, when he puts the kettlebell down and we move to the opposite side, it's super important that we don't bring that kettlebell over your face. Strong first, we always say, if you're not going to do it with a 48-kilo kettlebell, you shouldn't do it at all. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can basically pick it up and go the opposite side, or you can spin the kettlebell around your head. But let's do it from a different angle now so they can actually see the start position. Okay, so we're going to show you another angle. Now this is going to be a left-sided get up, and pay attention to the start position here. So just hold on for 1 second. And again, you're going to see his elbow is tight to his ribs. That is a very strong position for John, and it's a very safe position for the shoulder. So from here, John is going to grip the kettlebell with 2 hands, and then he's going to roll to his back. He's going to go ahead and press the kettlebell with 1 or 2 hands. Either one's fine. And then we're at this position. We're going to roll up to the elbow. That stays vertical. He goes up to the post. And then he's going to bridge through, get into that half kneel position. He's going to sit into his hips, and then he goes into that vertical position at that 90-90 position, which looks like a lunge or a split squat. From here, he's just going to reverse it now. Find the floor. He's going to sweep his leg through or sit through, come back to the elbow, and then he's going to come back down to the start position. As he brings the kettlebell down, he's going to roll back into the side lying position, and he's going to park the kettlebell safely. So a couple safety things. When you are doing get-ups, just pay attention to what's around you, because it is one of those exercises where you're moving quite a bit. So we want to make sure that we're safe. Again, never bring that kettlebell over your face, safety first. A couple things we want to focus on from a shoulder positioning, and let's get you to the roll to elbow position. And we want to make sure that we're just not shrugging our shoulders when we're into the elbow position or when we are into the post position. So let's get into the roll to elbow position for me, John. Without a kettlebell, yes. Just a couple quick tips here. Roll to elbow. Now, we want to be nice and solid through here. We want to make sure we're not shrugging. So show me a bad position, bud. This is not a strong or stable position, so we want him to pack his shoulder, actively push down. And that packed shoulder position, we're going to maintain through the way up and on the way down. He's going to come up to the post. And again, show me a bad position, bud. Bad and then good. All right, and now sometimes when you're teaching, people will learn from a bad position rather than trying to figure out what a good one is. So we really want to pay attention to this. Now, let's say we did a full get up and we're coming back down. Nice and stable, come back down to the elbow. Pay attention to here. We want to make sure we're not shrugging. And especially on the way back down, he's going to control his body to the floor and really own that position. That's a huge component of the get up. Some people just fall down, but we want to be deliberate with our movements. We want the kettlebell to do what we're asking of it. We don't want to react to the scenario, because that shows that you don't have control of it. So there's your basic components of the get up. So once you've learned the basic steps of the get up, we can use some slight shoulder rotations to find the optimal position for each step of the get up. Now, when you do this, do it with a light kettlebell. This is not to be done with a heavy kettlebell. And what we're really trying to do is we're trying to find a nice, comfortable, solid position and a pain-free position for our students. So we want to make sure that, again, it's safe, but this is a little bit of movement exploration to find that sweet spot, okay? So we're going to go into the start position. So John's going to safely go to his back, and he's going to press the kettlebell up. And again, this is with a light kettlebell. So from here, I'm just going to have John do some light rotations with the kettlebell, and we want him to find a position that feels nice and solid for him. Now, everybody's going to be different, so you can do 2 to 3 rotations, see what feels good, and then you can actually go through each step of the get up and do those rotations. So how's that feel? Pretty good? Good. And then good, he can hit a couple rotations here. And again, he can find that spot that feels good for him. That feels pretty good. Excellent. And he's going to come up to the post position and perform a few more rotations, okay? Just make sure you're not rotating and moving your lower extremities at the same time. Now, in this position, this is a little different. So again, we need to make sure that we're in a nice, comfortable position. John is trying to basically determine what's the best point for him. And then he's going to go transition into the half kneel. Now, you can do some rotations overhead, again, to find that sweet spot. And he's going to stand up. He can hit those rotations again. And again, we're just trying to find that nice, particular spot that is going to give him the most amount of stability and comfort. And he's going to drop step, again, rotations once again. He's going to windshield wiper the leg, and he's going to find the floor. and then go from there. So on the way up and on the way down, he's just going to go through and determine, based off of feel, what's going to be the best for him. Another beautiful point of these rotations are, if he's excessively shrugging his shoulders, it's going to be a lot harder for him to rotate. So it almost acts as a little bit of a feedback tool. So once you understand the basic transitions of the getup, then you can explore what shoulder position is going to be optimal for you. But again, make sure that you respect the weight, make sure that you use a light weight, and just slowly move through those transitions. So now we're going to dive into another variation of the getup. Now, if you've spent any amount of time on the mats, you're going to have dinged up shoulders, you're going to have grumpy, grumpy upper back. That's just part of the sport. So the getup not only can be really therapeutic for improving overall shoulder health, but it allows you to press at different angles, which again can be therapeutic for the shoulders. Now, if you are someone that trains a lot of combat sports, going overhead with a lot of volume is probably not optimal for you. But here's a nice way that you can sneak in a little bit of pressing, but it's not gonna really overly tax the shoulder. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through the getup again, but we're gonna add in a press at each stage. Now, John is gonna perform this with a fairly light kettlebell. Now, make sure that you understand the transitions before you add the presses. And again, start light and then slowly add load as you feel appropriate. So John's gonna go ahead and get to the position. He's gonna press. So he's gonna roll to the elbow. And from here, he's going to perform a press. Now, he's actively pulling like a one-arm pull-up or a one-arm chin-up, and then he's pressing. And then he goes to the position. And again, we're actively pulling. We're trying to focus on that active negative. And then he's gonna press up again. And then from here, he's gonna bridge up, and he's going to get into that half kneel position. Now, at this position, just pay attention because this angle can be a little bit tough to press from, but it's an amazing exercise for, again, improving mobility and stability. Now he's gonna sit into his hips, and he's gonna go to the half kneel. He's gonna give me a press, and this is gonna mimic more of a true overhead military press. And then he's gonna stand up. And again, he can do a press here as well. And now this is just gonna be a regular military press. He's gonna drop step, and he's going to perform those presses at each transition. He's gonna windshield wiper, he's gonna half kneel press rather. Now he's gonna windshield wiper, he's gonna find the floor. He's gonna do that active negative. Think about pulling the kettlebell towards you. Don't just respond to gravity, actively pull, and then he's gonna go through each stage of the getup with that press. Now, another beautiful part of this style of getup is you can develop some really strong and sturdy shoulders from pressing at various angles. And if you have a light kettlebell, let's say you don't have a ton of kettlebells around, you can go into this position with a 16, you can do 1 presses, 2 presses, etc. And you can accrue some nice volume with a very, very light kettlebell, and you're gonna get a huge benefit.
Let's set some ground rules. Let's figure out some training principles. Let's identify some key points about training. Number 1, you already know that general physical preparation before special physical preparation. It's ridiculous when somebody tries to do some highly specific, sport-specific exercise without being able to do several strict, strong pull-ups with some added weight, or being able to swing a heavy kettlebell, or doing a deadlift. Number 2, you need to understand that strength is the master quality. It doesn't matter what your sport is, whether it's grappling, wrestling, long distance running, for crying out loud, the master quality is strength. It's a foundation of all other physical qualities upon which the pyramid is built. So you will not build your endurance to a high level if you do not have the foundation of strength. And moreover, your endurance just is going to be weak. Fighters like to preoccupy with strength endurance. Our colleague Steve Bakari likes to say, don't worry about strength endurance. You don't have any strength to endure. So you got to build up that strength first. Then after that, you can build all the other qualities. The next item to understand is strength, endurance, flexibility. All the physical qualities are skills. That means they have to be practiced. You cannot smoke your way to greater strength, greater conditioning, greater flexibility, greater skill on the mat. So you have to approach everything with a focus, with intensity, with attention to detail. And you have to maintain a very high quality. Quantity doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many reps you do. It matters how many correct reps that you do. A very important point about the correct training for strength is just remember this phrase: lift heavy, not hard. Lift heavy, not hard. What does it mean? Your typical amateur who tries to imitate some kind of a bodybuilding workout will take a weight that he can do maximally, let's say 20 reps for 20 reps, 20 repetition maximum, 20 RM. And he will do as many reps as possible. He's gonna grind his teeth and it's gonna make look really ugly, and those last reps are gonna be terrible. But he's gonna make all these reps with high intensity, or so he thinks. He's gonna be very proud about the pump and the burn that he has incurred. In contrast, a serious strength athlete will take a weight that he can maximally lift, let's say 5-6 times, 5 or 6 rep max. And he'll lift this weight only 3 times. So the weight's much heavier, but he's not necessarily pushing himself as hard. But as a result, he's going to be able to do more sets. So more sets with a heavy weight, they add up and they build strength. If you look at any strength sports, powerlifting, weightlifting, you will find that top athletes train exactly in this manner. The weight is heavier, the reps are lower, and with the very few exceptions of the pre-competition preparation, they don't necessarily go all out. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So lift heavy, not hard. Which brings us to the next item on the agenda. Number 6, aerobic endurance is superior to lactic acid tolerance. Everybody's enamored with the burn, with the pump. Oh, I can tolerate the burn, I can eat the suck in the wind and feeling absolutely terrible. Yes, it is the part and parcel of many sports, definitely that of combat sports, and that's something that needs to be trained. But that's only a small part, only a small component. The foundation upon which you need to build your conditioning is aerobic, which means you can use oxygen and produce less acid. But I'm not talking about casual jogging wearing some kind of cute running shorts. I'm talking about what we refer to as strength aerobics. This is Russian anti-glycolytic training. Here's a simple example of how this works. Let's take your typical Metcon and fix it. Let's see how we fix it and make it into strength aerobics. First of all, we lose the pathetic baby weight. That doesn't do anything. We increase the weight, make it noticeable. How heavy? No, I'm not talking about all-out heavy weight. I'm talking about the weight that you perceive as moderately heavy. For the majority of your training, moderately heavy weight is the answer. Moderately heavy intensity is the answer. So moderately heavy weight. We're going to reduce the reps. We're going to reduce the reps to 5 or even fewer. In fact, if you do more than 5 reps, you're probably bodybuilding, so don't do that. You're an athlete, you're a fighter, you need to build strength. And conditioning, very specific type of conditioning. Then what we do is we adjust the rest periods in such a way so we can sustain this training load for 30, 40, even 60 minutes. So think of this for a second. You pick up a heavy kettlebell, you swing it for 5 reps. Then you walk around, you come back, then you do another 5 reps a minute later. And you keep doing this for an hour. Well, I'll give you an even more intense example, a very sport-specific example. This is an old Soviet wrestling preparation tactic back from the 60s, where 2 wrestlers practice for up to 60 minutes. So think of that. Try to take another experienced opponent, if you're already experienced grappler, and roll for 60 minutes and see what happens. So that's strength aerobics at a very high level. So heavier weight, low reps, adjust the rest periods in such a way so you can sustain this heavy work for up to an hour. It does not feel like Metcon. It doesn't feel like some kind of a fluttering of desperate prey. This feels like heavy labor, That's what strength aerobics, that a grappler, a wrestler, a fighter needs. That's the premise of the programming behind this video. The next item you need to understand is the difference between training and peaking. I said earlier, of course, the pump, the burn, the breathing hard, they're unavoidably part of training. So whenever it's getting close to competition, in every sport, athletes start doing something very hard in a different way. In endurance sports, athletes start doing this really hard smokers. When they just feel the burn, the pump, the diaphragm is working hard, the heart is pumping. That gets them prepared physically and mentally for that experience. Strength athletes peak by lifting very heavy weights for very low reps. So since you already have plenty of preparation on the mat, that's of the kind that's burning and smoking and hard breathing, prepare yourself like a strength athlete. So do some heavy weights and come into the competition fresh. So that's the difference between training and peaking. And the final point to make here is variety is overrated. Everybody tries to tell us how important variety is in training. In pop fitness, maybe variety is important, and serious athletic training is not. You're possibly practicing the same moves year after year after year on the mat, maybe adding some new ones, but still it's about the basics. Top lifters, weightlifters, powerlifters, they're training 5, maybe a few more lifts and variations for decades. There's no need for variety. You can choose the weights, go heavier, go lighter, add sets, subtract sets, but variety is overrated.